All right, thank you. So this is our second budget meeting. If you remember back, it was 2 weeks ago we last met. Some of the takeaways from that meeting that I made budget changes to were some of the council comments were we'd like to see the levy go down for a change instead of up, but we didn't say by how much, so I'll assume going down by something is enough. One of you wanted to learn more about the road projects. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into this. We had a long discussion about the road projects this morning at a Public Works meeting. One of the comments was, you know, we should have a small increase, but we should still be able to get things done. And then let's get it below 5% if we can. And then we made some updates. One of the updates, we did was we got a proposal back for the health insurance renewal. We're not ready to present that forward for approval, but it looks like our adjustment will be about 4.8%. Resource Training and Solutions reorganized our pool again to try to provide us the best rate. So we're in a little bit different pool for risk that we were last year. But remember, we still have to maintain the same level of benefit we did as the previous year because we still have 2 active union contracts. We'll follow up with that at our next meeting and probably try to get that approved at the September 14th regular meeting.
What was the percentage increase in that?
4.8%. The ranges went from 0% to just slightly under 10 for our group. And then for a similar group to ours, they were anywhere up from 0 to about 13 to 20%. So we're looking at how we would fit into the small business market. Instead of a pooled group like we're in, we just want to make sure we've done our due diligence before we come back and make a recommendation. But I think we're looking pretty good from that respect. So that change is reflected in this latest model we're going to talk about. Just as a reminder, our next meeting is on September 10th. We're currently proposing to set the preliminary levy at the 14th of September at a regular meeting. If we need to, we would still have time to call another meeting before month end to do that. In our Truth and Taxation meeting to certify the final levy, we're looking at December 14th at the regular meeting, okay? So this is set up just like it was before. I don't know if I can get you to go to page 2 on there. On the revenue side, we started at, make that a little bigger so everyone can see it. Is that better? We started at a little under 9.7 million. We made some changes. Levee reductions. Say, what are the levee reductions? As new information comes in, we make those changes. As costs change, we make changes the other way, whether it's either things that are financed with proposed equipment certificates or bonds versus what we ultimately end up financing with our levy. So what are those changes on the expense side? There's a whole bunch of them. We started out at 10,104,000, and you say that's a big number, but remember that number included all the capital projects, whether they were sewer related, road related, or other. Now, one thing this model does not incorporate is what are we doing with the fire hall? So we'll need to determine that yet. That's a timing issue. We know we're going to do something, so it'll either fall into some in this year and maybe some into next. When we know that answer, we'll update this too. So I've got this listed by department. I'm not going to go through each one of them. When I did the health insurance estimate, I was seeing renewal rates in that 10 to 15% range. I knew the experience of our group, so I picked a lower rate, and we end up coming in at about half of that. So that's what those changes are. The biggest change was in fire administration. Chip is continually giving me new information on what's a ladder truck going to cost based on what's available, and right now that estimate went up a little bit. In Public Works, the biggest one was we're going to carry over some projects that we didn't do in the joint maintenance facility. Right now the county is pretty much stopped with repair and building repairs and maintenance for planned projects we planned a year ago. We've already levied for those dollars, so we're going to push those over into next year. Same goes for road projects, Wild Wind Ranch Road, Wild Wind Ranch Drive, which we talked about this morning, and a few other things like that. So this next page, if we go over to page 4, what we're always looking at is this came right from the county, and it came up back out to us. The print date on this from the county is the 17th, which was after our first meeting. So I got this last week, and we're always trying to figure out what our tax rate is or what number we should use for taxable net tax capacity versus market value. So in the red box, I'm just going to go to the bottom, and I'll make this a little bigger so you can see it. Is this number right here that I'm circling? That's our new, most recent guesstimate of our taxable market value. So that's the number that's the divisor for our levy to come up with our tax rate. Okay? So whether it's 100% or 115 or 20 or 30, whatever that number is, you take your levy divided by that number, and that's what your tax rate is. The number on the left here, that's the taxable market value of all the property that's taxable in the city of Cross Lake. Now, what the county does is they continually update this. So what I try to do is provide you with the most recent number, so our estimates are as close as they can be. When we go to the next page, I'll show you how those have changed. But $1.4 billion of market value is quite a bit. It's more than Brainerd, and it's more than Baxter. So we're a big chunk of the county from that respect. These next couple pages is information you've already seen. Those are the final tax rates from last year. So we'll skip over that and we'll see if you have questions. And then we'll go to, I lost my page number, page 8. I had to flip these, so the page number is in the lower right-hand corner and the lower left-hand corner. Now this is the big picture number on what our taxes look like at the current rates. So over here in the gray column, I took the $1,372,000,000. That's your market value, and we calculated a new tax rate based on that, on this number, tax capacity, that 14,837. So with this model, our tax rate actually goes down from 30.86% to 29.82%. So that's the rate that gets applied towards your taxable tax capacity that determines what your property tax is. So if your property could generate $100 in tax at 100%, and you applied this rate to it, you'd pay $29.82 would be your tax for the city portion. So then I look at if there's changes in the levy or the market values, where do those changes come from? And in this case, pretty much all of the change comes in changes in tax capacity, which is driven by your market value. So the reason it went down isn't because the levy changed primarily, it's because the value of the property being taxed changed. So if we go back up to that page that I had the red box on, that would be page 4. We're going to look at this column, market value of new construction. So John Kolstad will attest to the fact that he's been really busy the last few years. That's almost $23 million in new construction that's coming online. Okay, that's a big number. So if we go back to page 8, where I'm showing you the tax rates, if for instance we were to assume we have the same tax rate as we did last year, we would generate an additional $245,933. So depending on where you stand on that, you can say, hey, we kept the tax rate the same, but we're taking advantage of the increase in market value at that same rate. The opposite's true if your values fall, which does happen sometimes. So for what it's worth, that's what I have to say on that. So we say, well, what does this represent for an adjustment over the previous year? If I go to the next page, I'm going to move John Kolstad over here. This is a very high-level summary as of today, and I'll make that bigger so you can see it. Said we're looking at, we need $9.9 million to run the city next year in this plan, of which $3,395,430 and $1,129,000 is borrowed money, whether it's for equipment or roads or sewers or sewer construction projects or biosolids plans. We'll talk about that later. And then I said we're going to spend $10,425,731, and we have a difference. How are we going to make up that difference? Well, remember, $315,000 of it is recognizing how much our sewer plant depreciated. So that's really not, you don't write a check out for depreciation. You just recognize that your equipment is worth less. We're carrying over from the year we're in right now, $210,000 of projects we levied for that we didn't do. So what we did was we pushed those projects into 2021, and I didn't want to penalize us for not doing those projects by levying again for them. So the assumption is we already have the cash, or we will have the cash in the bank by the end of the year. So there's no reason to include those in the levy for pay 2021. So what does that mean? That means down here we've got just slightly under 30% for a tax rate, and an adjustment, a change from last year to be 2.74%. Okay? So now if you take out some of these projects, like if you take out the sewer extension project and biosolids, you would also take out $2.3 million of debt to go with it. So that will not have anything to do with your levy this year, because we're taking the revenue out and the expense, so it's a wash. If you did decide to issue bonds in 2021, your first payment would likely be in the following year, in 2022, because you get the money and you do the project in 1 year, and then you start paying for it in year 2. That's the year that your levy would be impacted for debt that you would likely issue in 2021. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So the next few pages are what we had before. There's just a little more information in there. We've got our total revenues. The far right column is where we started out on the 13th. The gray column in the middle is where we're at today. The column between those is intended to show you what changed. And for an explanation of that change, you can go back up to the front of the file where it goes through each one of those changes individually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut to the chase on a lot of this. The next few pages, they're just updates from what you've already had. So I think what everyone's interested in is what projects did we carry over and what things did we change. So I can get you all to go to, starting on page 18, the middle of that file. This item in yellow is the updated pricing on what we think a ladder truck might cost us should you decide to purchase one next year. So we'd replace a vehicle with that one too. If we go down a few more pages to, got to get my page number here. Page 19. See there's some items in blue on there? These are projects here, right here, that we were planning to do in conjunction with Crow Wing County for the joint maintenance facilities. We didn't do them. We still need to do them. So we're proposing to carry those projects over into 2021, but we also want to reflect that we've already generated the money to pay for them, so we're not going to levy for those projects again. Now, what Ted is telling me from the county, and Ted, correct me if I misspeak, the county's not sure when they're going to do those projects, but some of them deal with fixing leaks and painting columns and things like that. Those are still things that we wouldn't want to put off doing, so we might need to think about going ahead and doing them and then working out when to get reimbursed from the county. Because if we have a leaking column or a hole in the roof or something we need to fix, we don't want to wait till they're ready to generate cash for it. We want to fix it now and work out when we can get reimbursed with them later. So we may end up doing some of those things and then having to wait to get paid for them. That's the point. So if I go all the way back down, if I keep going down, and I'm looking at page 21, there's another blue item on there, $98,430. We had $17,300 in the budget for Wild Wind Ranch Drive to pay for. We did not do the project this summer. It got pushed out to next year. So the $98,000 that we've already levied will get carried over. So we're not going to levy again for that. We just received updated pricing for that this morning from Ted and Dave Reese. And our new budget is about $160,000 for that project. That's bad news, but the good news is I've already incorporated that into our capital projects. So what I'd like to do is spend the majority of our time on the capital and the road projects, but I do want to mention Chip and I have been working on pulling together the information for the CARES Act. Now we've already spent some money on it, so we'll be filing our first report on what we've already spent that you've already approved to apply it for that grant. It's basically the things like everyone's holding a mask or hand sanitizer or some of the things we did to comply with the COVID issue when it first came out. We're also looking at things like trying to get reimbursed for the antenna that we just purchased or that's being installed. I think it's already done. Is that done, Eric? Yeah. Most of it. A couple related upgrades to the EOC that's right below us. We may have an opportunity to even pull in a park truck that we're looking at for next year because it fits the definition of necessary under the rules. Now, it's a truck for the Parks Department. Right now they have a 2008 Chevy and they have one truck. We can't let them ride together. We have two staff. And the reason we're looking at another truck is the Chevy that we have was a hand-me-down from Public Works. It's time to replace it or use it as a second. And then we do things a little different now. We use TJ's staff in snow events. Instead of having Public Works do the small parking lots like what we're in right now, the community center and the Public Works lots, and some of the smaller roads, we recruit Josh and Corey to run the smaller trucks to do some of that cleanup work. So that's what we're looking at. And if we can pull that into this year and use CARES money to spend for it, we can drop the budget by about $40,000, or we could reallocate that somewhere else. So there's a few opportunities to do that in here. So we had a rather lengthy meeting, special Public Works Commission meeting this morning. So I'm going to ask Ted to maybe talk a little bit about, I don't think we need to talk about the facilities and the equipment in here, but let's try to focus on the really big stuff. We can talk about the Mack dump truck. Looks like you're trying to replace that. We may have an opportunity to consider acquisition of a demo for a little bit less.
That's why I was a little bit late. I just got the latest detail from the vendor. A new Western Star demo truck today is $212,000 and some odd change, so we're right at $213,000 for that truck. The last demo that we bought was the International. That was about $135,000 or $136,000, and the Mac was before that, and that was in the $120,000. So they've gone up quite a bit in the last few years because of all the pollution control on the trucks. But that's today's. We have a 07 and a 2013 right now. It would be a 2020.
That's what we're looking at, is if we decided to go that route, you've got a couple of options on how you'd like to pay for it. You could do a 5-year equipment certificate and spread the payments out over 5 years. That's attractive when you get a little larger number than that. We could also look at, there may be some money available through, the last certificate we did was like $561,000. We did that through a Rural Water Association. We placed that separately. We did really well on that. I don't know if you'd want to do one for $250,000, but you might want to combine it with the potential ladder truck, if that makes sense.
Have we agreed to buy any of this stuff, or are you just going, has the council agreed to go ahead with that?
No, they have not agreed to go ahead with that. That's why we're talking about it today. We're showing you what the need is and what the plan would be to service the payments on it. If I could get you to put your microphone on, Mr. Mayor, then we can have you recorded too.
Mike, if I could, I'm wondering why we were buying a ladder truck versus a regular truck. I guess I question that, especially a used one.
I'd ask Chief Lohmiller to address that.
I'm leaving on a call, and I should have brought it up earlier, but.
I can answer that.
Oh, you're right.
I moved,
you were
sorry.
Over there.
I wanted a more comfortable chair. In my capital outlay, we have due an engine. An engine is $650,000. I've always been opposed to a ladder, but the one we're looking at is 78 foot, and basically it's an engine with a ladder on it. I mean, it's not bells and whistles. It's just basically would be used as an engine. And then if the opportunity comes along where we need it for a ladder, we have a ladder. The other thing is Ideal Corners is not going to purchase a new ladder once theirs is out of date, which will be probably 5 years. So there won't be a ladder truck up in this area. The truck that we're looking at is a demo. It's brand new, but it's a demo. They usually sell this truck for about 1.050, just over $1 million. And we're getting it for $879 if we were to purchase it. And that's a 30-year truck. So it would be last 30 years, and then take it out of service. But it basically would be used as an engine.
Yeah.
But then you have the ladder. If we wait, the other reason I'm looking at that is because of the ISO, and it's not because of the apartment buildings, because most of them are sprinkled. It's more of the storage buildings that we have. They're getting to be so big.
So you understand where I'm coming from on this, Chief. When we built the senior center down there, you stated very clearly that there would never be a need for a ladder truck.
At that site, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's sprinkled.
There's where my concern is coming from. I heard one thing, now all of a sudden I'm hearing something else.
I'm not going to look for a platform truck. That's at 1.25 million. This is an engine. If we don't buy a ladder, I need to buy an engine at 650. So it's, there's an opportunity to buy a ladder for an additional $229,000, where in the case, if ISO comes back and does their check, which will be next year, and they see all these new big pole sheds that are up, they've mentioned to me about a ladder truck for the last 2 sessions that they've gone through it. And that's just something, you know, down the road, we might go back up to an ISO 7 because we don't have the resources.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
But that's, I mean, it's basically, we're getting a pretty good deal for $229,000.
What year is the replace the E2 truck? What year is that?
Engine 2 is a 97. Mike, do you have the capital outlay sheets? I don't have it with me.
Yeah, I do. I'm gonna go to, and you can find this on page 18 of your. You can find this on page 18 of your packet. It'll be right at the top of page 18. And so, I mean, Chip's done a really good job of mapping out all of his equipment. You know, fire equipment's very specific on how long you can keep it or how long you should keep it. And so the yellow item is the truck he's talking about. And the other ones you're looking in, out into 2023 and 2025 for the other major purchases.
And one comment on that, if we were to purchase this 879, I can take the 2025 off the capital outlay for the engine 2, so that would come off.
So what are we looking at this? Are we looking at moving forward with it, or I'm opposed to buying any new trucks this year. We're spending too much money, so I don't know if now is the time to bring that up or not, but I'm not in favor of that. And even replacing the E2, you know, our trucks appear to me to be pretty good trucks. So I'll throw that out for conversation.
Yeah, you're not looking at replacing engine 2 until at the earliest 2025. Is that correct, Chip?
Correct. If we replace it with a ladder engine, an engine, so when you say ladder, really it's an engine.
Yep.
But then you get a ladder, then if we were to do that this year, we won't have to do it in 2025. In 2025, that number 600 is going to have to be adjusted to probably 700 for an engine, just so you know.
Yep.
And engines usually are 20 years old and you need to get rid of them and get them out safety-wise. Same with tenders. And we've had this discussion with Ted. You start, like the engine 2 is starting to nickel and dime us right now. I don't know what my last service was, $3-4 grand, I think, $2 to $3 grand.
Yes.
And it's occurring monthly now.
But I think you just said the engine ladder truck that you're talking about getting is a 30-year truck.
Yes, that would be a 30-year truck.
But the other one.
But the engines that you use constantly every day, the ones that you run, they're 20-year trucks.
So what did you say the ideal was not going to replace their ladder truck
That's
until
correct.
5 years old?
They're not replacing, correct, until about 5 years or what. They'll probably run it till it dies, but they're not replacing it.
So for a ladder truck, we could assume that there's one in the area for mutual aid.
Yes, there is one from mutual aid, and we've called Brainerd for mutual aid as well.
And if we didn't replace it with a ladder truck, are you still looking at replacing engine 2?
We have to replace
This year?
engine 2 by 2025.
Oh, so that could be
Yeah.
out. So this is just an additional.
Right. If we were to purchase it with the way the pricing is right now, if you recall, in 2015 we purchased my engine 1, and we paid $520.
Yeah, 520.
$520, and the same truck today is $652. So it's gone up a lot in 5 years.
Okay. Any more discussion on the fire trucks?
I think one comment I have is that right now, in the big scheme of things, money as a commodity is relatively cheap. Timing, I'll have to take wisdom from Fire Chief. Can't comment on why this year, or next year, or the year after, but I'm just saying right now, in the big scheme of things, Cross Lakes finances are reasonable. You've shown a program that might actually drop our levy. So I'm not as much against it now. maybe as Dave Nevin is, just because, as I said, money as a commodity is relatively cheap right now, and we've got things under control due to the increase of taxable market value.
Yeah, one thing you might want to also consider is these are demos. And so if you're planning on buying them in 2021, it'd be in January, not December. It's likely if you waited until December to buy either of 2021, the plow truck or the fire truck, it's likely it wouldn't be there. You'd be starting over again, and the whole price structure would need to be adjusted. So just keep that in mind. Unless there's any more discussion on the fire truck, let's move right into roads with Ted.
Tom Swanson, Cross Lake. The armor radios and the PPEs and the medical supplies, will any of that fall under the COVID stuff?
Yes, it will.
So can't that come out of the budget?
It can. When we decide we're looking at around 10,000 for the radios. Yeah.
And I guess, my question, you've got 20,000 both in 2021 and 22. If it qualifies for the COVID, why don't we just spend 40,000 and have it reimbursed through COVID?
Yep, and we've talked about that. So anything we can pull in from that respect, like the park truck, these radios, the antenna, we would take out of any plan for 2021.
Okay, and I don't know if this is a typo, but in 2023, under boots, you've got $10,000. Did that get one too many zeros or something in there?
Yeah, that's correct.
We're going to spend $10,000 on boots in a couple of years? Okay.
Clarify that. So NFPA and OSHA, you cannot have gear over 10 years old. Our boots are up that year, so we have to buy all new boots. So that's 30 pair times $333.
Yep.
So are you purchasing those PPE for $9,000? I see you haven't spent anything this year in 2020.
Am I buying what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The PPE, the 32 sets you have in here, you haven't purchased them this year?
We buy 6 sets a year. We already purchased 6 sets earlier this year.
Oh, because it doesn't show to date that you purchased any.
Didn't we buy that? We bought them this year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
We'll look into that.
Yeah. So in my capital outlay, it's 6 sets a year that I purchase.
We may have them listed in turnout gear instead of capital. Yeah. So the budget is up there with them too. Okay. So we talked a little bit about roads. We talked about the blue items over here that get moved out to next year. We talked about the fire truck or the plow truck down here. So if we can get to starting on page 41, I'm going to turn things over to Ted and have you talk about what we talked about this morning. So the short story is the plan that's in here provides for about $48,000 of chip sealing and crack sealing, and it provides for the roads that are, you can talk about the roads, Ted, $419,000 is what it comes to for overlay projects, and then it's about $1 million that would be looking at bonding for reconstruction projects. So go ahead, Ted.
We had a lengthy public works meeting this morning to address roads and try to come up with what and where we should go. One of the things I brought up is we have probably in excess of $30 million of assets out there, and how much should we be putting every year to maintain our assets? Should it be 10%, 1%? What should it be? Should we be putting $1 million a year into maintaining what we already have out there? The long and short of it is the budget that I have brought forward, with the help of Dave Reese, as far as roads, the Public Works Commission voted to bring that forward to you, and that was their plan. Mr. Sharp, I think you have the motion there.
Yeah, there was a motion made by Tom Swenson to recommend to the council that the council moves ahead with the recommendation of the city engineer and Ted Strand to complete $419,000 of road overlays and $1,086,000 of road reconstruction projects in 2021. So they all were in favor of recommending that. So.
And are those the 4 or 5 projects right below that 419?
Yes.
Summit, Cool Haven, Woodland, Hilltop, I mean, are those the roads?
Yes, that was what we.
And those are all overlays?
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a little conversation about that for the council. And if you haven't, you should drive down the roads. And so I understand that we need to get into a schedule of doing these roads so they don't all pile up at one time. But if the road is not in that bad a shape, do we want to put it off and do it later, or do we want to just do them on a schedule? I'm not sure that everybody who lives up here has to drive on a perfect road all the time. And I know that there are some people who do, but I personally am opposed to that. I think we should get the most use out of it as we can. Overlays are significantly less than a reconstruct. We've talked about that quite a bit. So I just want, I'm not really opposed to this, but I just want to mention it.
The problem with it is if you keep putting them off, all of a sudden one year you're going to get hit with a tax bill that's just going to be frightening to us because we'll have a bad winter, the plows will tear them up because they sometimes do, and all of a sudden you're replacing $3-4 million worth of roads, and your tax base is going to go crazy with it. And so you need to maintain and make sure that they're always in functional order. My personal opinion.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. The other side of it is if you can get a few extra years out of a road, it's costing you less. And if you bond for a bigger project, you do more.
But boy, you have to be careful with that because when they fall apart, they can fall apart in bunches.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
one of the things they talked about at the meeting today was that there's the overlays work best on roads that have been redone the correct way and those roads that have a good base. And it's my understanding from what I've heard during my time here, there's a lot of roads where it seemed like they just pushed off the brush and put the blacktop on whatever was there. So I think one of their goals is to move into more overlays down the road as we better understand the roads that we have done the right way, and grind up the surface, get a good base, and by using the overlays in the future, that'll answer Dave's question on packing in a few more years.
I agree with that. Can you hear me all right, Charlie, with this up here? Okay.
Okay, so let's go, can we go to the reconstructs? Is that next?
Yeah, just so everyone's clear on the roads we're looking at for the overlays, we talked about Whitefish Avenue, Hilltop Drive, Woodland Drive, and Cool Haven Lane. Now, when we listed this out last year, we had Whitefish, Hilltop, Woodland, Cool Haven, and Summit was on there for a total of 331. Now, if we take Summit off of there, that gets us to 306, and we're looking at doing 1, 2, 3, 4 roads for $419,000.
So what condition is Summit in?
So the point is, the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. I can't speak to Summit. Maybe Ted or Dave could.
I mean, why is Summit coming off of that list?
There was a reconstruct of the northern part of Summit, and the southern part of Summit was what we considered for an overlay, And with the seal coating program that we had laid out for Manhattan Point Boulevard and Shadywood and Summit that was freshly paved, we made a decision not to overlay Summit, and we did a seal coat of the whole thing.
So do you think Summit's going to be in good condition for 10 or 15 years?
We're hoping it's kind of a test case on the southern part of Summit. So we seal coated it along with the rest of the road.
Okay.
If I could, one more question on this stuff. Where is the Highway 66 sewer system landed? It sounds like they're trying to push it out to 24.
I saw that.
Yeah, there's a motion from the Public Works Commission to basically wait until the county is going to redo the county road, is what it came down to.
Okay.
And then tackle the sewer at the same time.
Then I got two questions off of that. What are we going to do with that $250,000 grant? Because that doesn't reach that far.
I'll be talking with Soil and Water Conservation on Monday about that to see if there's something we can do with it. So to be determined.
If we can extend it out.
Okay. And what happens if the sewer system up there that is very shaky fails? Because when it fails, it goes straight in the lake. I'm very concerned about that, because the guy the long-term septic guy that went in and helped them with that project stated clearly it is on borrowed time. It could fail today. It could last 4 or 5 years. It will fail. There was no doubt in his mind about it. And that was Tom Esperson. He was a long time expert. So I'm truly concerned about that being pushed out so far into the future, because I think we're asking for significant trouble.
I don't disagree with you a bit, I guess, as far as timeline. It was just the consensus of the group that right now we just didn't have the $1.3 million to go forward with it and get it done unless we go bond for it. Everybody kind of wanted to wait and see if we're going to get that tax, that 0.5% or whatever it's going to be on the
sales tax?
Sales tax.
I wouldn't count on sales tax with our economy right now, with the COVID, with all that stuff going on. I wouldn't be counting on any sales tax. Would it be nice to get? Yes, I'm in favor of it, but I'm not in favor of it if it affects our economy in any capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess at their next meeting, I would like to have further discussion on the Highway 66 project, if we could, please.
As far as I know with Bolton and Mink, they're about ready with plans and specs. So if we wanted to in January, you could start a project if you wanted to. It's just what the council is comfortable with doing in this coming year.
So we don't have any money budgeted for that sewer?
We have 1.3 that's in this year's budget right now.
There's 1.3 in it in this year's budget in the utility fund.
So what's going to happen with that if we don't do anything this year, which we're not going to? Does it just carry over?
We would rebudget it in the next year, because remember, we were going to issue bonds for that and assess it.
So we don't have the money sitting there. We just agreed that we're going to get bonds for it.
Right. Yep, we don't have the cash sitting there that we've already acquired for it. We haven't done that yet. The idea was to, in big round numbers, it was about a third, city assessments, city sales tax, and levy.
I firmly believe we need to hang on to that 1.3 into next year, and I understand the election processes are going to affect everything, especially at the high end, and I think we need to hang on to it so we can do it in 2021, and we don't have to finagle to keep money.
Well, just so we're clear, we have not generated the cash to pay for it yet.
Yeah.
We would do that through a new bond issue.
Well, then I say keep it earmarked. I don't know, that's my personal feeling.
And there's actually 2 sewer projects. There's the other one going behind here too that the people want to do, so, you know.
Is it earmarked now?
No. It's a placeholder in the budget. It's $1.3 million of new money and $1.3 million of new expenditures.
It was in the plan last year.
Yep,
At the end of the year, and because we thought at the time, the plan that we had was sales tax was going to come through and we would get, we had another project that we could see, but the other one that Dave's talking about,
Yeah.
we need to follow up on that. But we had a plan in place and then COVID happened. And we got halfway through the presentation at the state and then it died. And then, so anyways, we had a plan. My recommendation is we need to contact Moonlight Bay and Moonlight Square and get some input from them on their systems, because right now we don't know. They might say we could last another 3 years. So,
Just going back to some of the meetings we had in the community, only Simonson Lumber was for the extension at the public meetings we had. Moonlight said they were fine right now. How long that's for, who knows? I agree with Aaron. I don't think we can count on sales tax in the next few years. We might get lucky, but I just don't think we can count on sales tax. So whether we want to go for bonding it and paying for it, I mean, I think it could fail at any day. I agreed. But we did not have much community support for it.
Is there a financial bill in 2021 at the state level? Because I think we have to be connected somehow to that, and I thought that was every 2 years. So there is none next year because there was this year. So the earliest we can reapply is 2022.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
So it is feasible that,
Is it at a general election or does it have to wait till every 4 years?
every 2.
Every 2 years. It has to do with the
So
state
every 2 years
budgeting process. They do a 2-year budget, and so you can't come in the middle of that with anything, as I understand it anyway. I'm not guaranteeing that, but
So could I just get the council's opinion on the sales tax, that we still want to make an effort? And I understand the market or the economy is suffering right now, but
I think for 22,
we put some time into it, and I think we got partway through. We should continue on.
2022, I think that's a plausible.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have plenty of projects come 2023, because that's when it would go into effect.
Yeah. Seems like we always have projects.
We're going to have
galore.
plenty of projects to fund, so I'm not worried about that part of it.
I think we should go forward for it, but listening to the Senator Rude and going through the House presentations, things vacillate before one way or the other way on the pendulum, and whether the legislature in St. Paul wants to give cities the ability to decide of where Minnesota tax money goes. And when you get into the sales tax, depending on the year, they figure that's their prerogative. Yes, I think we should try for it. I don't think we should necessarily hope that we're going to get it. I have a question for Mike Linus or someone else. If the sewer system at Moonlight or anywhere else failed tomorrow, how long would it take us to get our act together to replace the sewer to?
I'll try to take a stab at it.
All right.
You want to bid that out in February. You don't want to go out in June
Right,
15th and say, we got to get this job done.
Let's say I did. Wanted to bid it in February.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best time to do it, to get a fair price. So if it fails in June 1st and we decide we want to get behind it, move that thing through, it's going to cost us twice as much.
Gotcha. Okay, just asking the
It's
question.
going to cost you twice as much.
So.
Okay,
So we need to talk about that, but I guess we don't have to do it now, huh?
yeah.
There's one more part to the sewer that's on there, and that's biosolids. There's $1 million in there. Right now, we haul the liquid biosolids and we haul it over to the Pine River Sanitary District, and they apply it to their reed beds. And I'm trying to be proactive, not reactive to it. We've been verbally put on notice by the state that that program or that type of recycling is going to go away. When? I don't have a date of it. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. When it happens, they're going to give you a length of time to do something with it. So I guess with the $1 million, you could take and move that down for a few years out, put it into 2025, and do the project then, or wait until we get the letter from the state. You are going to have to do something with it at some time. I just want the council to be aware of that. But that's one project you could take and pull out and move out if you want to. As far as the other $200,000 that's in there for the clarifiers, painting and repair, they're on borrowed time. They have to be repaired. That was an engineer's estimate of the $200,000. And the $50,000, that is for new controls in the lift stations. They're obsolete, worn out. We've got to get them replaced. So there's $50 in this year's budget. We're working on with the supplier right now to get $50,000 spent right now and get half of them done and then do the other half in early next year. So.
But is that part of the county's responsibility that they decided to do nothing about now?
What's that? No, this is all with this is all wastewater. So if anything, I really would take the $1 million out, and I do need the 200 and the 50,000 for the rehab of the lift stations and the treatment plant.
Okay. Thanks, Ted.
I have just a follow-up on that, if I may. Does everyone understand the biosolids? Why he's working on a pilot program now? You know, just to be proactive. But at the last Public Works meeting, you know, we talked quite a bit about. He mentioned the MPCA has given a verbal thing, but they haven't made any official thing. And if I were to think about it, I would think that if they did make an official thing, they'd give you a year, 2 or 3 years to make your changes. So
We'll pull it and wait till the official notice.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But in the meantime, I don't know, Ted, if you're working with John Groutman at Bolton and Mink, and this is like no charge to us. Do you see any cost coming on this thing? You know, I'm just saying we need to elevate the communication, so we keep an eye on this here.
We might before we're all done, we might spend $5,000 to $7,000 on some design stuff with it. So if it does come to be that we're ready, we're more shovel ready than we are today.
Right.
But the pilot project is no charge to us at this time.
Okay. You had mentioned though in the last meeting that you might need land.
Remember,
more land? Do we have to leave a holder in there or have we done that? You know, the property that we've made attempts to buy.
He's not ready to move on it yet, from that respect. But you're right, we would need the land to do that, and we do not have a placeholder in there at this point, this time for the land.
Okay.
I think that we should wait with that biosolids project until the PCA says you have to do it, and to spend money on design right now. Who knows in 5 years, if that's when they mandate it, what the design will be required then, and then you're redoing the design. It'll be a do-over.
When I say design, I guess it is, you know, we're looking at several different types of treatment, and we're trying to narrow it down to the most cost-effective and efficient for the city. That's what I mean by design. I'm not trying to design the system today where I'm building the building. This is to take and look at different types of treatment as far as the biosolids and come up with a system that'd be the most cost-effective for the city. That's where I'm saying the $3,000 to $5,000. That's what I'm trying to get there.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yep.
Thanks.
So that's a lot to think about, isn't it? So again, just to remind everybody, our next meeting is in September 10th. Of questions, concerns, make sure you get them to me. I didn't get too much of a response from this first round, but maybe that'll change this next time.
Can we ask questions about the budget? I didn't know
Yeah.
where you...
Yep, ask any question you want.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions on the capital budget.
Okay?
You'll have to bear with me. I can't even tell you what page because I went off the old one. I went through it already. I thought I'm not going through the new one.
Well, the page numbers are the same, so are close to it.
I do have a question in general government. What is the improvements for $50,000?
We were looking at doing something with our civil defense sirens,
But you have,
and those were answered in the memo that I sent back to everyone from Tom's questions.
you have 25,000 in the civil defense sirens for this year, and that wasn't utilized. And I understand there were some.
There were repair type things on that, but we're looking at a full-blown replacement should we just decide to do that.
So wouldn't you put that 50,000 in civil defense then, if that's what you're using it for?
That's what we need to determine. We'll likely use it to finish the fire hall in all reality. Like we used the 25,000 in there. I'll get to the right spot here so everyone can see what we're talking about. What March is talking about are these numbers here. We had 25 in siren upgrades and repairs. We're still waiting for some billing to come through on that, so we should see something in there. And then we'll figure out whether or not we can get that covered under insurance or not.
So you don't need to repair the civil defense or replace the civil defense sirens? Why isn't that 50,000?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
The civil defense sirens, you had 25,000 in there to replace them, and you didn't do it.
No, we didn't do it. The council didn't do it.
Okay, but it has not been done.
That's correct.
And it was budgeted for in 2020. Now you're coming along and you're going to budget for civil defense sirens, but you don't have it under civil defense sirens. You just said that 50,000 would include civil defense sirens.
Right, and we're looking at how this repair is going to go as we're still waiting for parts. So there will be changes to this, but the reality of it for this year is the $50,000 that is in there. You can clearly see that it's been absorbed by the rebuild of the city hall. So either way, it's gone, whether we decide to go forward with the civil defense siren or not. Ted, if you want to talk about civil defense sirens. We're running up on 3 o'clock too here, so.
Okay.
I'll try to be very brief. We have 11 sirens in town. Of the 11, 2 of them are back to, and I'm not going to say ancient, a time way back when, where we can't even get the parts anymore. They go back to World War II and things like that era. One of them was actually donated by another resident here in Cross Lake. It served us well, but it's to the point where we can't get parts for it anymore. So that's the 2, if we can, in the future that we need to replace. What we've run into is some lightning hits this year and has caused electronics problems on the newer sirens. And just one of the sirens, the estimate was the circuit board was over $4,000 just to replace the circuit board in it, and we're still waiting for that circuit board. Right now it is working, but it's working. The electricians are making it work. They invented something to get it going and get us by for now. But it will. We're probably, before we're done, we're probably $7,000-8,000 in those sirens. So, and we had another one that went out on after the last storm again. So.
Okay, since I can't ask the rest of the questions, I'll probably have to do it through email or whatever on capital outlay. But I do have a concern that last December at the Truth and Taxation meeting, that the City Council levied 3% more than what the budget required. So I think we need to really look at that. My understanding at the last budget meeting, I wasn't on the council, but everybody wanted to hold the line to last year. So I'm thinking that it should be no problem to decrease the tax levy by 3% because you didn't need it last year. You budgeted 3% for unforeseen expenses. And I don't think that's right personally. My opinion is you don't budget for unforeseen expenses. You reallocate or you prioritize. So I would like that to be taken into consideration, and with the times now, with the COVID and the unemployment, the economic, I think we need to take a look at trying to reduce the levy. Even the 3% shouldn't be a problem because we didn't need that last year. That we should reduce the levy by 3 to 5%, no less than 3%. That's just how I feel about it. So I would like I guess the opinion of the rest of the councilmen, and if we should direct staff to try to get to that.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
So,
I mean, just as a suggestion going into the next meeting. Tom, we got to kind of cut this off though, because I think we got a Zoom with your guy, right?
Yep.
Don't we? Our next meeting starts right now.
So you'll need to adjourn this one.
Yeah.
I move to adjourn the budget meeting.
Yeah. Let's close this meeting.
Second?
Second? Yep.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.